Hi. So for my portion of this project, in the subsection of communicating science, we look at what is not working. What is not working within the way that we're communicating the science from scientists to the ones gathering the information to the public, the ones absorbing this information, and ultimately leading a lot of the charges in public policy, but also in private business. How do we mobilize infrastructures and business models to incorporate sustainable development? And so in looking at what's not working within communication, we can see a lot between the language that is used between scientists and the public, but we can also see a lot in what is being communicated, what exactly is being communicated. And you see a gap between what the scientists are trying to communicate and what they are communicating, and what the public is understanding of what is being communicated to them. And so you can look at various events in history in which the facts have been changed or just not fully given to the public for them to understand a full picture. And so in trying to understand what it is in the ways that we communicate that's not working, instead of writing about it, I thought I would just ask my friends what is not working for them. And they will tell you what they perceive are the issues in the language, in the way that science is communicated, and overall concluding what's not working in bridging the gap between scientists and the public.
I think there's a gap between scientific information and public knowledge just because of the language that scientists use. It's really not digestible, and it's not in the realm of an average American for them to even understand what they're talking about if they're even trying to get a message across.
Thank you.
And act upon.
I think that it becomes hard because there's definitely no lack of information. The scientists are very knowledgeable about the topics that they're talking about. But what I do believe is the act in which they are telling the story or telling the things that are causing issues within climate change or the environment as a whole, and their not lack of ability, but lack of experience of breaking such a complex topic down to the general public makes it intimidating. For example, me or another individual that is interested in climate change, but when it comes down to terminology, the barrier to entry is insane. I can't understand everything that is being discussed or the problems that are being discussed. And if a scientist were able to break down those bigger issues into smaller ones so that the general public could further understand, then I believe not only is there going to be an overall better understanding of what needs to be done, but also more involvement, because people are like, this is an issue that can be or the bigger goal, or the goal as a whole, could be accomplished through a series of smaller goals. And ultimately it comes down to a scientist being able to convey those issues and also his opinion or her opinion, and also the solutions in a simple manner. And when I'm doing my business major, we are learning how to appeal to a variety of audiences. Scientists don't have that ability because they're always catering to the people that already know about an issue and all the terms that go with it. Whereas if I wanted to learn about climate change, I don't know all the variables that come with it. So he or she writing that article needs to understand that there are different audiences that they need to appeal to.
What do you think that does to climate action and driving climate movements?
It's a deterrent.
What is?
Climate action and also awareness, because I don't understand what is the issue, because I'm not going to take the time to read through a complex article that half the terms I don't even understand. Because you're constantly going to have to Google every term or piece of information, and then go, and eventually you lose the article that you were originally reading because you're going off learning about all these other things. When in reality, a scientist could break down that term or that piece of information a little bit more, so that it's just making it a lot more approachable for the average person.
I think it's important to have something like that because people are from all different parts of the world, grow up differently, have different vocabularies, different schooling, and so some people might not be as educated in eco-linguistics and need that to educate themselves.
I would say that due to science being a inherently hard topic to explain across different education levels, and people being educated not only in different languages but also at those different levels.
Okay, so science is an intensely complex area of study and topic in general, and it's so difficult to communicate the specifics of that field to people. And unfortunately, in our system, that relies heavily on the media to do the communicating. And it's such a small group of media sources, and cherry picking information and not necessarily painting a complete picture of what the science actually is, not to the fault of the scientists themselves or necessarily intentionally the fault of the media, but due to all of these compounding factors, we have an inadequate system.
So, as my friends have helped to express, communication is a big part of the climate movement, and making sure that everybody understands that movement and what is being said and what is being spoken about is important to making a just climate movement. Like we have said in the start of our presentation, quite clearly, is language matters, and making sure that language that is accessible matters, and making sure that it is accessible in everyone's language is important. And furthermore, it builds justice and it builds collaboration that is just. And so when we're talking about making climate accessible and making climate movements collaborative, communication is a big part of that. Domestically, making sure that people are educated on what is happening within the English language, having the true facts communicated, and having news sources that can communicate that effectively is important. And then on a global scale, making sure that the language is understood interlinguistically, and in the definitions that are behind that language and that rhetoric.